This is Voice the Change, conversations about doing business better. Hi, I'm Patricia Lambert, Red Shoe Savvy, and I'm here for Voice the Change. Joined today in conversation by my colleague, Dawna Jones of Inside Out Consulting, and two very, very respected people in our community. One is Brian Whiteford, and the second is Marilyn Anderson. So wonderful to have everyone here today for this conversation. Dawna and I have been touching upon, skimming the surface of a conversation about communication and building relationships and how it works and how it doesn't work. So Dawna, let's open the conversation with your thoughts about what's the bottom line for using communication to build relationships.
The bottom line is really that it's an exchange of energy. So it's not, we like to think it's about the words. You know, everyone knows words are like 7%. So that means the rest of it is tone. It's you being very cognizant of where you're coming from at your emotional source. So that's really the bottom line, is being aware of where your the source of your communication is and what your intention is with it. So,
Marilyn, how does the exchange of energy work into some of the work that you've been doing with Judith Glaser?
I love what Judith is doing because she's bringing neuroscience and communication and a lot of interpersonal skills and a very high degree of sensibility around mindfulness without using that terminology per se into a realm of the boardroom. How do you do this? It works with the family, it would work with a loved one or the family pet, I presume, too. But really, it's about integrity. I used to get the first programs I ever developed started with an exercise in values. And I would get clients to write their top 10 values down. Come back in a week. This is your homework. And I want them from 10 to 1. Because the minute you say something's 1, the rest of them, you just stop worrying about it. But when you have to evaluate, that reverse titration changes the outcome. And it makes people really process things at a more emotional level. And then when they came back, the next exercise was use a sentence to tell me what that value means in your belief system. For me, one of my highest value is integrity. And I believe integrity is what I do when no one else is watching. And when you go through that, it changes your understanding. It changes, for me, my understanding of what my values and beliefs are and how they translate into my everyday life. Judith's work is about how the neuroscience applies, how you can go from fight or flight or freeze or appease in a boardroom setting or across a coffee table with a colleague, and understand how you can self-regulate to open the door for a better understanding, clearer communication, and most of all, foster trust so that you can let other things fall away and really look at what you want to achieve and how you can put your heads together to achieve it. Globally, corporately, as a partnership, across an office desk, it doesn't matter. The principles are universal and they work, and she's delightful.
Brian, inside of a hierarchical structure, such as the police, the military, actually, there are lots of hierarchical structures. Yeah. Where have you gone with the work that you have done to enable relationships to be built? What kinds of communication techniques have been used?
I fully agree with Marilyn on her point about integrity. For me, that is what it is, as well as within generally the police structures or military structures, is the integrity of standing up and owning what you do, what you say. But where I've gone, I guess, I tend to be a little more of an active listener, because I find that what happens is that because everything where I've been working has been order driven, or an assumption that what a manager is saying or a senior officer is saying is an order, so it needs to be done at the spur of the moment. It's the active listening for, are they actually asking for that information or that answer right away? Or are they asking you to explore that answer or see the thing? So that's where I would say that has provided me with a little better understanding of active listening, and then taking it from there. So then I can ask the questions to get to the root of what they're seeking.
Okay.
So what Brian has just described, if I may, is reading intent through how you listen. Is perceiving intent. So this gets us into the realm of what you might call conscious perception. And Marilyn, it's interesting when you were talking about pets. Animals are actually extremely good at communicating effectively, way better than humans, using thought. So they can observe, and there's plenty of research on this, where there's a wonderful story of a prairie dog town, and a human walked through it, and the research discovered that the prairie dogs knew what the intention of the individual was, that he carried a weapon, that he didn't intend on using it. They just through how he set up the research study, they could tell what the intention was. And we've seen lots of stories of polar bears playing with huskies, day after day for a week, and the intent, the animals knew the intent. There was no mistake about it. So, I think they're better at it than we are, and I think we're just learning. But the key to it is what Brian just said, is about that sensitivity to listening, listening very consciously and intently. And then as Marilyn was talking about with Judith's work in conversational intelligence, in case you haven't read the book, it's about being aware of what's that triggering. What part of your brain's coming online? Is it the one that wants to run out the door and bolt, or is it the one that is ready to step up and engage in dialogue and dig deeper?
And it's interesting, I think, when we're talking about integrity and intention and active listening, there is also, I believe, an active watching. And let me tell you why I think that. I was speaking with an international organization this morning, and I had watched one of their short videos from one of their members. And the video was just absolutely kicking it. It was out there. It was cool. It was well designed. The last clip, the very last clip, there were 3 individuals in it, and one of them you knew was so uncomfortable about being in that clip. And that then destroyed the message of everything else that was in that video clip. So I think while we're talking about actively listening, I think part of that active engagement total is the watching what's actually going on, that's not being said, what's not on the table in an overt way.
Yeah, and when you do watch, you have to watch being mindful of what tapes are running through your head, because a lot of people are looking for evidence to support what they're already thinking, as opposed to actually just allowing it to come in. And all of you mentioned the word integrity. Almost everybody in any organization has experienced mixed messages, and it's not that anybody told you, oh look, here's a mixed message. It's that people can hear the message and they detect through their sensory capacity, through observing body language that they're completely unaware of, that the person is feeling out of sync with what they're saying. They can detect the discoherence. And that, it's not, I mean, we label it integrity, but it really goes back to, is there a unified state between the mind and the heart in that communication? And if there's not, mixed messages result.
If we're talking about business to business, then there are options or opportunities for those mixed messages to be checked out. But now let's think about with our customers. Do our customers want to bother checking out mixed messages that we might be sending out?
I think it's our perspective and our responsibility to filter them out before they ever get to the customer level. Brian, picking up on what you said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. I love the example of Cheers, the television show, and Sam the bartender, because nobody ever complained to Sam if there was a lipstick print on a glass or the beer was flat. They liked that relationship. They didn't want to abrogate that relationship. And they trusted Sam. Well, nobody is listening to most people's customers, least of all the business owner or the darling 16-year-old to whom you trust your afternoon shift while you're home having dinner with your family, who's worried about dating his colleague across the counter. He's not worried about your income, your family security, or your retirement plan. We have to really think about where we're placing trust in our organizations and really think about what our customers' experience is. And when we come rolling that way back to source and think about being your customer's journey architect, like, what does that involve? Every contact from before they meet you is part of that customer's journey. And if I go through information, I read it first for a cognizant disconnect, which might be just a word or a misused phrase or mispunctuation, and then I read it out loud for the audio disconnect. If it passes those two tests, we can go try it out on some people who will give us honest feedback, who may be your customers already, that you know, like, and trust, and likewise know, like, and trust you.
Mm-hmm. I find I like your description there of the two tests.
Thank you.
That's yeah. What it does for me, I guess, is exemplifies how I try, and not always successful, because we can't always be successful. And sometimes in our communication, it depends on the receiver of the communication and the information. But replaying, if the client says something to me, then to understand what they're saying, I'll reflect that back to them. So I guess in a way I'm doing similar kinds of things that you are, Marilyn. But reflecting that back, and especially if there's a sort of a heated situation in the observation where somebody is anxious within the room, we do pick up on those subtleties. And I know when I've facilitated groups of 25 to 30 people and talking about their needs and their aspirations within their community, there's always somebody who is not going to agree with somebody else's statement, but the point is as long as they're heard and the other group gets it, and that's the thing, is to excuse me, is to facilitate that symmetrical communication, so that, and put it to its basic message, so that everyone can confirm that they've understood it.
You know, I appreciate that, Brian, because I remember a long time ago when I was doing a lot of organizational change work, we brought in the game called Know Me. And Know Me is a game that was born in South Africa, where they were reconciling the apartheid issues. And they started off with the two parties not talking to one another at all. They just wanted to do bad things. And then as they started playing this game, which is very much around, well, tell me a moment when, you know, this happened to you. And they started sharing at a more deeply empathic level what their experiences were. They discovered that people were going over to the coffee table. The two parties were going together over to the coffee table and saying, you know, I totally disagree with you on that point. Would you like, cream with your coffee? So these disputes, these conflicts, these confrontations were being handled through respect. And that's a hard one for people to get, because in organizations, they're typically wanting to win, to be right, to come out on top, to get a step ahead, instead of recognizing the only way to get a step ahead is really to have those difficult conversations in a respectful manner. And without the diversity of perspectives, you really can't produce higher quality product. It's just not going to happen at a innovation level or any other level.
Yeah, I've noticed on a couple of conversations I've had with one individual who I spoke about in a previous discussion, is that listening, and you see their behavior and the words they say and then their actions, and that really does play into knowing whether or not that person has the integrity to follow through on what they say, or has the intent, as we've discussed as well. And I think that's a very obvious thing. And if you're not sensitive to that as a consultant or somebody who's involved in the organizational change, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And you'll never be as successful as you could be if you're a little more aware of the surroundings, as Marilyn pointed out, being testing the situation through a simple question.
Ryan, you remind me that when I was an actor, we always had the mantra that character is action.
Mhm.
And so we can say that we're going to do things, we can put them on paper, we can blab about them as long as we want. Until action has taken place that supports that, we do not have any evidence of integrity in how we're communicating, how we're working with people, in how we are being. So I'm wondering if, as we wrap up this particular conversation, if each one of us could think of one thought, one tool, one gift that we would like to give to the people who are watching this as they are thinking about integrity and communication and building two-way relationships with the people that they work with or work for.
I can do that. I feel that the whole crux of this matter rests on creating trust. And to do that, people have to feel safe. Whether it's one-on-one, across a coffee shop counter, barista to customer, Brian's example of being in front of a room facilitating 30 people. It's really hard to have everyone feel safe and get everyone onto the same page. And they don't always get there at the same time, we know. However, when that trust is established, when people feel safe, they will tell the truth. And it is in that conversation that they give us a chance to have an authentic experience of who they are. And that has to be in place for anything else productive to start. Every one of us has customers. Our kids, our cats, it doesn't matter. And our clients, God willing. Their experience of our brand is the very first time they encounter a pixel, a comment, a referral, or us. What is that customer experience, and how can we build, like a necklace of pearls, a chain of exemplary experiences that bring the good ones to us, keep them engaged with us longer, and show us how we can help them help their friends? That's called referral. That's the holy grail of what this is all about. But I think if it doesn't start with trust, you don't get the sharing, you don't build the experiences, and it's just a lot of copy that winds up in the trash.
The one word I garnered or captured there was the demonstration, and I find that in going to the example of standing in front of the 20 or 30 people and giving them that confidence that they know each other through their own business in their own community, but a stranger coming in there is another matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about demonstration that you have the values and that you're interested in what theirs are, and you don't have any other agenda other than what you're seeking, the information that you want to get from them. And I found that over the years, as I went back to each community, and I've been in 65 in BC over a period of 3 years, and each time it was like, oh, hi, how are you? As they gained that trust, they would talk to colleagues in their community and say, no, this guy's good. He's not there to do anything. He's here to listen. And that's the thing. Demonstrate your integrity. Demonstrate the values that you bring to the process, and that you hold their counsel sacred, I guess, is to use an epithet that I hate using, but I would say shoot the sacred cows. But anyway, that's my point.
The short and sweet of it is that emotional self-regulation is probably the most powerful tool anybody has in their kit right now. And it's not to be confused with intuition. Intuition uses your emotions as part of the data set, and feeling crappy and grumpy and angry impairs both your intuition and your decision making. So being very much aware of how you're feeling and where you're coming from. Are you coming from a place of need? You and I talked about this in the conversation about Ryan Lochte way back when. So in one of the other shorts we did, but it's being very cognizant of how am I feeling, because that's being sent out, whether you like it's being broadcast, whether you know it or not, it's going out there. So, and what about you, Patricia?
Yeah, well, I want to hitchhike on that. I think that each one of us carries a camera in our mind, and the camera doesn't lie. Be real at all times. Be real. Not everybody's going to want to be receptive to your reality. That's okay. Be yourself, be real. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining Voice the Change. I'm Patricia Lambert, and I'm joined by Dawna Jones, Marilyn Anderson, and Brian Whiteford. And we look forward to you joining part of our conversation as we move forward in the future. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Patricia.
Thanks for watching this episode of Voice the Change. We look forward to knowing what's important to you to enable you to do business better.